Hi, and welcome to Open, the show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world to you. I'm Kibin Alleyne, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough. Coming up, the New York State Senate just successfully passed Bill S4329A. This bill holds drivers from other states or countries to the same high standards as New York City drivers. The state senator for the 32nd SD shares more details. What does it mean to enter a license reciprocity agreement? Then, organization The Rebirth of a Woman is raising awareness and creating safe artistic spaces for those impacted by domestic violence and sexual abuse. The founder of The Rebirth of a Woman joins me later to tell us more about their mission. Why is it important to create a safe space for those impacted by traumatic experiences? After that, a $17 million cut from Rikers Reentry Services will prevent formerly incarcerated New Yorkers from attaining economic stability. The CEO of New York City Employment Training Coalition tells us more about the long-term effects of this cut. How are these budget cuts affecting our workforce? And finally, RiseBoro Community Partnership recently built a Woodlawn Senior Living at 69th East 233rd Street in the Bronx. The CEO of RiseBoro Community Partnership is in studio to share the details of this housing development. How does this help address the issues of affordable housing for seniors in the Bronx? So stay tuned, all this and much more is headed your way because we're now officially open. Hello everyone, I'm Kibin Alleyne and today is Tuesday, July 11th. You are now watching Open, a program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. Don't forget to stay connected with us via social media at BronxNet TV. New York Senator Louis Sepúlveda successfully passed a bill in the New York State Senate that enables New York to enter into driver's license reciprocity agreements with other states, countries, provinces, or territories. Senator Sepúlveda joins me now to discuss this new bill and what it means for New York drivers. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Could you talk about Bill S4329A? I think, like, for somebody like me who doesn't drive, this may be like completely new, but so can you talk about that, and what it means?
Sure. So, if you are visiting the United States from a foreign country, let's say, or from another state, you're permitted to drive here. As a tourist, while you're here as a tourist for a short-term period, you can drive. However, if you want to remain here, remain as a resident, you have to go through the entire process of getting a license, start from scratch, with one exception, and that is Canada. So any Canadian who establishes residence in the state of New York just has to exchange the license. You don't have the same process that you do when you obtain a license for the first time. What the bill does is it opens up to the entire world to reach into an agreement, a reciprocity agreement with the Department of Motor Vehicles of New York State. And obviously the two jurisdictions, New York State and whatever country, they have to agree on the principle, how they're going to work out the exchange of licenses. What the bill does is gives the same opportunity that Canadians get to everywhere. The impetus of the bill basically came from the Dominican Republic and Taiwan. I've met with the Taiwanese ambassador a few times. And in the Dominican Republic, there's a senator in a particular province there. Her name is Alexis Victoria Jeb. We also got help from two assembly persons, Assemblyman Phil Ramos from Long Island and Manny de los Santos from Washington Heights, and a couple of committee chairs because it was a long process to get it through. But now what happens is that anyone who wants to become a resident, get a license, and there's a reciprocity agreement with any country, they can now do it by simply exchanging licenses.
Okay, I'm so glad that you clarified that because I think for myself, I was kind of wondering like, what does this mean, or
Mhm.
like what is it supposed to do? But it seems like it's actually like kind of like making it easier for people from other countries and kind of leveling the playing field. Would you say that's correct?
Oh no, it absolutely does, and remember, the reciprocity is the condition for you to avail yourself of the benefit of this. But also, if you want to go, let's say, for example, we have a reciprocity agreement with the Dominican Republic or any other country, Colombia, or you can now go, if you wanted to remain as a resident there, exchange your license. So it creates this synergy and potential economic development in certain areas. and that was one of the big movements why we got together and did this. But it took several years. The first discussion started several years ago, but when officials from the Dominican Republic got involved, that's when it really got the strength to finally make it a bill, and we're just waiting for the governor to sign the bill.
Now, how does this passage of the bill signify a step towards safety just for everybody who's driving?
Well, remember that any reciprocity agreement, both for us here in the state, is the Department of Motor Vehicles. In other countries, they have their own similar agencies. The Dominican Republic has a place called Entrant, which is their version of DMV. The leaders of both agencies will get together and determine what the requirements are. Obviously, people have to know the laws here in New York State, and you have to know the laws of any jurisdiction where you want to do the exchange. So there'll be a time period where they develop the requirements and so forth so that we can make this a reality.
Now, how does this bill commit to a more inclusive and supportive environment for all residents and visitors?
Well, I mean, I don't understand why Canadians had this benefit, not everyone all over the world. Certainly Latin American countries, you have a lot of people from Latin America here that are a bigger presence in the city of New York. And this would be much more helpful to them than, say, other jurisdictions. And not to take away from the Canadian government, but we should all be on the same playing field.
Now, how does it support economic growth?
Well, for one thing is that, people that want to be residents here, if they want to get jobs, if they want to travel distances once they're residents here, it makes it a lot easier. Sometimes getting a driver's license may be a burdensome process where they may miss a job opportunity. We see a lot of people coming from other countries coming here to provide. We just had a whole set of teachers from the Dominican Republic who came here to provide academic teachings to children that have come here initially that don't speak English. They may be English language learners. Mm-hmm. So these individuals that benefit from this license can travel far and above places where they normally can't. And so it'll help them. And also the same with those of us who want to go to another jurisdiction and, be professionals, live there for a few. We can now get a license, and it's a lot less onerous and burdensome for individuals that want to do the exchange.
Right. And we also did a segment a few months back now that where we learned that so many like taxi cab drivers and Uber drivers come from different areas. Mm-hmm. And I can imagine like this would only help them and like provide more for them. Can you talk about the importance of that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a lot of our immigrants come from Latin American countries, from Africa. A lot of the Uber drivers are foreigners, mm-hmm. And many of them may have a difficult time obtaining that license. So we hope that they come from a jurisdiction that has entered into a reciprocity agreement with the state of New York, because it'll make it easier for them to work and and Uber can get more drivers. And Uber's in favor. Actually, most of the ride sharing programs are very supportive of this bill.
Okay, so that kind of would be my next question. Yeah. Like, what has the support or the response been like?
Oh, it's been, I just came back from the Dominican Republic 2 days ago. And a big part of the conversation there in the local newspapers and local media was about the reciprocity bill. They're very excited about it. Mm-hmm. And in Taiwan as well. I got a call from the ambassador because there's something that had been attempted for some time now. So they're very excited about it. So the response has been much better than I ever imagined it would have been.
So I'm curious to know about the relationship with Taiwan and, their part in this, because I think for me, we're here in the Bronx. I'm so used to having the Dominican community here, mm-hmm. in the Bronx, but I'm curious to know how did that relationship with Taiwan begin and the partnership for this?
Oh, absolutely. Well, my relationship with the Taiwanese government was when I was an assemblyman. I was an assemblyman for 5 years, beginning in 2013. And the Taiwanese government does something that's very productive, and that's every year they have delegation trips of elected officials from the legislature and the city council visit their country and to learn about their customs, their laws. Remember that Taiwan is a relatively new democracy, although the acceleration of democracy there is incredible. The leading figures are women up there, president, the vice president, opposition. So the Taiwanese government, we develop a relationship with them, and there's an organization called TICO here, because there's not official recognition of Taiwan because of the issue with mainland China. Mm. But TICO, the ambassador, spoke to us about the fact that they, who are, by the way, the 7th largest trading partner with New York State as a country, as a state, that they needed this reciprocity bill for people from Taiwan that wanted to become residents here. So the synergy was perfect. So we got the big support the Taiwanese government and the Dominican government.
That's amazing. Now, I want to know, is there anything that New York drivers need to know about this bill that may affect them, or will it affect them in any way?
No impact on current drivers. This is going to expand the number of people that can drive in New York State. I don't know if you recall that I was the sponsor of the Green Light Bill, which is a law that allows undocumented immigrants to obtain a driver's license here in New York State. And when that bill passed, everybody said, "Oh, they're going to use it to vote, illegally," and all this other, doomsday things that they anticipated were going to happen. But what it's done is helped over a 250,000 people to be able to obtain licenses, to be able to go to the police departments when they're victims of crime, because now they can't delve beyond what's on the license. And so what we've been focusing on is expanding the ability of people to get licenses here in New York State. And I can tell you that the automobile insurance loves it because now they have more potential clients. So it's a win-win for everybody.
And would you say that's kind of like what inspired the creation of this bill?
I think the inspiration was from the leaders of foreign countries, of these two countries, that saw a need for it, and our relationship with those governments. I've been to Taiwan. I've met with the leadership there. I go to the Dominican Republic quite often and spoke with the president about this bill, and he was very enthusiastic about it. So we're very happy with what we've accomplished.
Now, when can people expect to see this go into effect?
The bill just recently passed the Assembly. The Assembly just finished session a couple of days ago because they had to come back. Between now and the end of December is when we submit bills to the governor to sign. She has 30 days to sign or not. If she doesn't sign it, then it becomes law. What I'm doing now behind the scenes is pushing so that my bill doesn't go on the back burner and it hits the governor's office as soon as possible. So hopefully we have until December, but I'm hoping that before the end of the summer, the governor has signed the bill.
That's amazing. And it seemed like a lot of the work that you do, I don't want to say focus, but there is a highlight on, people from different countries and making sure that they feel a part of this community. What do you have to say to that, and why that's so important in the work that you do?
The Bronx is a very diverse county, and we have people from all walks of life, from different countries. We have a lot of people from Africa, from Senegal, from Gambia. We have a lot of people from Central America. There's a large Mexican emerging community here. We have people from Bangladesh. And to me, that cultural, the diversity has always been critically important to me. I think the diversity is critically important to the development and education of our children. To know, I went to Bangladesh and met with the leadership there and learned a lot about that country, and it helps me understand my constituents here. But it's very important to me. Diversity is one of the biggest issues for me on everything. I'm the chair of the judicial diversity for the New York State Senate, because I think, again, we should have equal representation in local government that reflects the population of people that live here. And so that's something that's very important to me.
Well, Senator Sepúlveda, thank you so much for joining us and having this discussion.
Thank you very much for allowing me, and I hope to be back soon.
Of course. To keep up with all the work that Senator Sepúlveda does, please go to his website, which you can find on the screen below, or follow him on Twitter at SEN Sepúlveda. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Open right after this.
¿Qué color? Perfecto, mijo.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo? Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
I'll see ya.
After a basketball game, a black teenage boy, Brandon, reads his texts in his family group chat. Auntie Flo, congrats on the big win. Mom, that's my baby. Brandon replies, thanks y'all. In a park, his sister Maya texts, where are we celebrating? Dad replies, home. Mom texts, I got dinner going. Auntie Flo replies, ooh, I can't wait. Then receives a FEMA flood watch text alert. She texts the family, anyone see that weather alert? We need a plan to stay safe, especially after last year. Ready has a list of resources at ready.gov/plan. In his workshop, Dad sends a photo of emergency supplies and texts, looks like we need flashlights and batteries. Leaving a store with a shopping bag, Brandon replies, I got us covered. Mom texts, I'll check in with Grandma and Papa. Maya texts, thanks Auntie, feeling good about this plan.
Got some batteries.
Auntie Flo replies, love y'all, we gotta stay safe. Later, the family
feel like he gets on every time I see you.
Stay connected. Plan for that.
Congratulations, Brandon.
Ready.gov/plan.
my heart out there in the open. Trees make you feel smaller. Can't help but get lost again.
Feel the beat of nature at a park or forest near you. Find a forest and music inspired by nature at discovertheforest.org.
I know what you're thinking. I need a job.
Well, I've been there.
I've been there.
But you gotta keep going.
You just need the right skills. Find an apprenticeship.
I found a course online.
You can do this.
You will find something.
You will find something new.
Welcome back. In 2016, the founder of the Rebirth of a Woman created a movement to empower women. Today, that movement is going strong as founder Mercy Baez-Duff uses her platform to focus on advocating against domestic violence and sexual abuse. Baez-Duff joins me now to discuss the Rebirth of a Woman and their overall mission. Mercy, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, can you tell us about your organization, the Rebirth of a Woman?
Absolutely. So in 2016, here in the Bronx, New York, I am a Bronx resident. I found it deep inside me to advocate for abuse and trauma. And it was unfortunate that I had to experience it myself, but it gave me all of the right leisures for me to advocate through voice, through artistic measures, and through throwing just different monthly encounters with having events for women. And then over time, it expanded its arms to advocating for all people because unfortunately, domestic violence and sexual abuse is not subjected to one person or gender or identity, unfortunately. And so it is really important for us to have that voice, but it has to come from us if it happens to us. So I just wanted to encourage others, if I could, to be the voice for the voiceless until they gain the courage to actually speak up about their own experience and over time heal from it.
Now, I think it takes a lot of courage also, as you mentioned, to say, realize something, you experienced something, you said you wanted to do something about it. Can you just talk about what made you actually want to start an organization? And, was that even part of your healing in general as well?
Absolutely. It was definitely a part of my healing journey. Once you speak with people and you know that you're not alone, it kind of gives you this for you to say, okay, since it is a Me Too movement going on, it's not just to be a part of it, but it's also to know that you could identify with other people who too are going through things, unfortunate things that circulate this nation to all kind of people. And it really stuck to me that I wanted to figure out what is really going on with abusers. They too are people. And so it's unfortunate that they are acting out in abusive manners. But what is happening for them to even act out in these manners? And so as I kept performing throughout all boroughs, and then I went to different states, and it started to just get bigger with this message of let's just stand for each other, and let's continue to encourage each other with the educational backing to it as to why people even have these moments of perpetrating acts of abuse. It comes from narcissistic behavioral patterns. It comes from possible molestation that might have happened to them, so they act those abuse out, So it just depends on what is happening with these different kinds of people and how can we actually help them. There are so many people that I found around the world who unfortunately are doing time in jail, for example, or something in that nature where as though they are being at fault for just defending themselves or for speaking out for someone else and then being in a more unfortunate situation that is more abusive because they are trying to defend themselves. And so I've had the honor and privilege to work in different spaces like school systems in Rikers Island and to have the moment to really just look around me and see how women are going through what I went through. And that could have been me in their seat. I could have been doing time for defending myself from my abuser. And where is the abuser today? Why aren't they in jail? Or maybe jail was not even honestly the answer. I believe that we need to have more programs, more resources that would be dished out for those who are perpetrating these acts of abuse so that we can support them to unlearn these behaviors. I do believe in change. So many different people have shown us the history of what it means to change and evolve as people, as we are healing. It's a constant journey. It's never ending. And so I do believe that if we focus more on encouraging, educating, and then figuring out, okay, let's not leave this group of people behind. Let's go back to everyone and let's figure out how can we support them. Unfortunately, you will have some people who fall off as you are trying to support them. You can't have everyone as your audience, but I like to look at everyone as my audience when I throw these events because it is for everyone. Even if you were an abuser, you can come to this event, and if you have the courage, you can speak about it, and we can try to see what we can do to help you, or maybe someone else can learn from your story and say, because they told this story, I'll make sure to not fall into alignment of this acts of abuse, or I'll learn to support others that come to me with these unfortunate stories that may have happened to them.
Now, I want to touch on the fact that you said that sometimes you'll go to schools. I think it's very interesting. And I think lately we've been talking more about like how we can talk to younger audiences about consent and, just their body in general. What made you want to reach out to students as young as kindergarten? And how does that work? How do you do that?
The babies, they're so precious. I look at children with the complete innocence of having the opportunity to really reach them in their innocence. Unfortunately, I was molested when I was younger at the age of around 5 years old, and it lasted for some time, and it was a family member. And being that I was violated in my innocence, I take children's innocence very, very delicately, and it's very important to me to maintain their innocence. So let's have a playful manner in talking about what it means to be safe and what it means to identify narcissism that may be around, because it's literally in every stature, I believe, in every class, and it's just literally everywhere. And I think we all obtain narcissistic behavioral patterns within our characteristic. And it's just about what it means to not have an unhealthy character while we interact with people. And so in 2020, I was homeschooling my 9-year-old daughter, Niall, and her and I taught mindfulness, meditation, and yoga virtually. And we just taught free weekly classes for families at home to help release stress and to help them identify what it means to be mindful. And I took that as the first step of a tool to teach the younger generations and what it means to just be aware. And once you're aware, then you know, okay, this is how I feel. This is why I'm feeling this way. Is it coming from me, or is it coming from an outward standpoint? And what can I do to ask for support, or to gain better understanding and what it means to move forward with either healing or just exploring yourself more. And so we had a great time with that. We had dance parties and all type of stuff going on virtually. And it was great to engage with families virtually for them to express, because 2020 during COVID was a lot. It was a lot for those who were out frontline protesting. It was a lot for those who were nurses and doctors trying to aid everyone who was unfortunately getting ill. It was a lot for schools and teachers trying to help their children. So we were just trying our best to support them through that.
No, I love that you said that your daughter was like a part of it. I think it's so amazing for children to see other children kind of doing this work and being visible, because you pointed out earlier, like having a peer, like somebody that has been through it, or just like to see a version of themselves. So for kids to see themselves like with you doing this work, I think is amazing. I understand that you also had a Black and Brown Women's March, and children were also a part of it. Can you talk about the importance of having children be visible in your work?
Absolutely. 2020 was a really tough time, but it was such a beautiful time because I learned how to grow closer to the younger generations. I found that in everything, I too am at fault, so it's not in judgment manner, but we kind of leave behind the younger generations at times. And I just wanted to find a way to keep them inclusive during a time like 2020, when it's realizing the world is waking up with what's happening. And so we were able to have a peaceful march from the Bronx into Harlem, and we had families and children holding up signs, and it was just so beautiful. I had my mother and my daughter there. They were also protesting with us, and we were just remembering the names of those that we lost and talking about what it means to stay together as a family during that time of 2020.
Now, I also want to bring up community, because I think that's also very important. I understand that you have a partnership with Starbucks Harlem District. Can you tell us more about that partnership and how it started?
Absolutely. I'm so excited about it, and I chose here to start it off to talk about it. So we have a partnership with the Harlem District, 11 stores in Harlem. Starbucks, and we are allowing them to partner with us in every event that we throw. So we are looking forward to building an end of the year, end of the summer event. Can't talk about that yet, but it's going to be an outdoor event, and every table that we have Starbucks right next to us, supplying food and beverages and supplying the space for a safe space for community, for us to have these conversations, for us to have fun, and for us to have community building, whatever that looks like. So I like to just travel to different locations to figure out, hey, what's going on here? Do you need help with something? How can I help? And if it is adhering specifically to the work that I stand for, then it makes it so much easier.
Now, I also want to talk about the fact that you support women's health. So obviously mental health and that version of health is important. But I think it's very cool that you also have women's health. Can you talk a little bit about the Women Empowerment Stretch sessions every Saturday through Zoom?
Yes. So it started in the beginning of June, and it's ending it's ending in August, and it's every Saturday via Zoom, where we have a stretch session. It's a woman empowerment stretch session, and it's specifically spelled out womb for our wombs. There's a lot of stress that resides in your spine and in your womb as a woman, from carrying around the ways of life, our ancestry, being mothers. It's just so many things that is carried, and it stays adamant there. And it creates different illnesses. And so I myself have even experienced gut health issues from 2020, from lack of eating, from too much stress, from waking up and realizing and unlearning a lot of things that I thought was actual truth, and I found that it was different. And it hurt me physically. The stress literally put me sick, where I thought I was going to die. I was throwing up all day, every day. And it came to a point where I said, I have to figure out how to not only stay alive for my daughter and myself and my family, but to continue encouraging other women to take care of their bodies. It's really important. We have a big percentage of women who die at childbirth. It's just so many things that are going on with Black and brown women specifically, and all women in general. I'm big on unity. But I don't want to diminish anything of what Black and brown people have been working so hard for over this course of time. And so I specifically, as a brown woman, I am focusing on Black and brown women with these stretch sessions, and allowing us to all come together with identifying our pains and how we can stretch through breathing, breath work. And it helps a lot for you to breathe through your pain, even through natural childbirth. You know, I had to give birth naturally, and it was a lot going on with that. And so I had to learn through my experiences. If I don't experience it, I'm really adamant about not teaching it, because I personally, I don't mind having teachers who haven't experienced something and they're passionate about teaching it. That's beautiful. We need that too. But I just personally want to experience it and go through it, so I can say, hey, I remember how this felt for me. I can just tell you my journey, and maybe it can help you with yours.
Well, Mercy, I want to thank you so much for joining us and having this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope to be back.
To find out more about Mercy and the Rebirth of a Woman, please go to their website, which you can find on the screen below. Stay tuned. We have more open for you right after this.
Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
I don't know why you're so sad. You've got a roof over your head.
Bro, you gotta stop with that depression stuff. That's a white people thing.
Escúchame, en esta casa, los hombres no lloran.
You alright?
It just feels like it's coming from everywhere.
Do you want to talk about it?
Thanks for hearing me out, bro. Appreciate it.
You can talk to me if you're feeling sad.
Whenever you need to talk,
I'm here, okay?
My character, Shazam, knows all about growing up in a family full of teenage superheroes. They're bold.
Where's everyone going?
To fight crime?
Okay. Adventurous. Shazam! There's never a dull moment. And no matter what happens, they'll always have your back. All they need is a place to grow and be themselves. And the best part is, you don't have to be a superhero to adopt a teen. Learn more about adopting a teen from foster care. Visit adoptuskids.org. You can't imagine the reward.
You can talk to me if you're feeling sad.
Thanks for hearing me out, bro.
Whenever you need to talk, I'm here, okay?
Welcome back. Budget cuts in NYC are having a major impact on workforce development, particularly in re-entry programs for people who were previously incarcerated. The Rikers Reentry Services face a $17 million cut, negatively affecting the economic stability of formerly incarcerated New Yorkers. CEO of NYC's Employment and Training Coalition, Greg Morris, joins me to discuss what these cuts will mean to vulnerable New Yorkers in need of these services. Greg, thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here. Really appreciate it.
Now, can you tell us about the New York City Employment and Training Coalition?
Sure. New York City Employment and Training Coalition is the largest city-based workforce development association in the country. More than 220 member organizations focused on supporting the needs of job seekers in New York City. So that's everything from job readiness and training to career advancement and retention, located in every borough, thinking about every major industry, and every age range, because in this city we have to think about young adults all the way to second act careers in terms of access to opportunity and employment access.
Now, what areas have been affected so far by the massive cuts to the workforce development?
Yeah, I think we need to put it in context in that our mayor at the State of the City address talked about a working people's agenda. And I was part of a convening of workforce development leaders and funders and labor and other providers as part of what's called the Future of Work Task Force. And it was all sort of centered around this idea of how do we get New York City post-pandemic focused on thinking about how it is that there's equal access to opportunity, that this is truly an inclusive city, and that there's equity. And the reality is, systemically, historically, there's significant disproportion in terms of what it is that job seekers have opportunities to do and what wages look like too. So all that to say, when we put forth an agenda that's about making sure that folks can work towards quality jobs, any time that the city talks about cuts, whether it's related to folks who are justice impacted, whether it's related to young adult services, when we talk about cuts to libraries, where there is workforce development and job training opportunities, that has a direct impact. When folks talk about cuts or potential cuts to discretionary services, those impact job training development services. So I say all this to say this is an opportunity to double down on workforce development, which is really a matter of talking about talent development. And what that means is we need to get talent, New York talent, ready for great New York jobs. And those jobs come in all sizes, but they all have to have a wage that can allow you to live in the city.
Now, I really want to talk about the Rikers Reentry Services. Can you just tell us what that is? I mentioned that there was a $17 million cut, which sounds like a lot of money. But first, before we can delve into that, can you just talk about what those services are?
Sure. So there is a group of providers, many of whom are connected to this Workforce Development Association that I operate, the New York City Employment Training Coalition, who have been focused on meeting the needs of those folks who are thinking about reentry. So whether that's related to mental health services, legal services, housing services, it's all about getting ready for what's next. And from where I sit, the investment that they make in thinking about job training and workforce development is huge, because the statistics related to folks who are justice impacted, leaving incarceration, and the challenges they're experiencing finding employment are tremendous. I mean, the latest statistics that I've seen, 33+% of those who were incarcerated have difficulty finding employment access. 60% at any given time are probably jobless. The reality of it is that if folks are not ready for what's coming next, and they're not prepared and not getting the resources, training, guidance that they need, they're not able to find a foothold in the workforce. That's a disproportionate impact. That's something that we can't find acceptable, because again, regardless of your starting point, or regardless of what needing their second, third, or fourth opportunity, folks need access to good jobs. And those jobs count, because those are the things that help you take care of your family and ensure your stability.
Now, can you talk a little bit more about the challenges that formerly incarcerated people face when they are looking for work? Because I think a lot of people, when I hear like, people who were imprisoned, like going back into the world, it's more like mental health, and all those things are very important. But
Absolutely.
of course, you need employment to kind of
That's right.
live.
That's
So
right.
can you talk about those challenges?
Yeah, just if you look at the statistics on this, on average, it's less employment access, lower wages. That's what comes across whenever you think about, or anytime any data has been collected specific to folks who have been justice impacted seeking employment opportunity. So that means you don't just have one knock, you've got multiple knocks sort of against you. And this investment that these providers were making to connect and build relationships with these folks to prepare them for what's coming next was huge and tremendous. And the city's communication that they were going to cut back on this, which came without a lot of notice, to pass on the sort of training opportunities that were being provided to the Department of Corrections, folks who are not experts in this type of job training, guidance, evidence-based practice, is really devastating to, it's as many as 1,700 individuals who are receiving these supportive reentry services. And also, and it's worth noting, I think it's an important point, as many as 90 individuals, many of whom were formerly incarcerated, largely Black and brown folks who were doing this training. So in other words, they were the ones that were hired to do this work and do this training. So now they may face job loss as well. So again, from every angle, this is not a representation of what I think a working people's agenda would really be like. This is not, and this is not what it should look like to ensure access. I guess the other thing I'll say is, and you said this, 17 million seems like a lot, but just remember, the city budget is over $100 billion. So when you think about it from that perspective, sometimes it's good to take a step back and say, wait a minute, is this a cut that's necessary? Is this a cut that means something? Does this reflect our values?
Now, how will this prevent formerly incarcerated New Yorkers from economic stability? And I love that you also mentioned that it's affecting like a lot of Black and brown people who were providing these services. So I guess you could talk about it just overall, how it's preventing so many vulnerable New Yorkers from obtaining economic stability.
Yeah, let's start from just the reality in this particular moment in our city's history. What the white unemployment rate is about 1.3%. The Black unemployment rate is 12.2%. That's the largest it's been since the Great Recession. So we're going back almost 20 years. The reality of this particular moment in time is that we're looking at a disparity, and we're looking at an investment from this administration in thinking about how to address that disparity. And any time that you see an immediate, urgent need for access, while you're thinking about what's coming next for the city, the economic opportunity, the different industry and career opportunities that are sort of unfolding in the city, it requires us to do something hard, which is do two things at once: meet immediate needs and create the scaffold for the future. And that's particularly important right now. And it's important right now for a variety of reasons. We talked about the unemployment rate, but I'll just also note for you, sometimes in this city, we talk about how the city has bounced back or is bouncing back. And you even hear that related to jobs. So they say, well, we're about at 99% of the jobs that we had before the pandemic. But the question is, where are those jobs? Many face-to-face entry-level jobs are no longer available. So disproportionately, who's being harmed by that? Who needs to be prepared for a next step opportunity? At exactly the same time, some of the opportunities that have grown in the city related to healthcare, related to social services, those jobs are available and those have grown, but they have the lowest wages. Again, disproportionately impacting Black and brown New Yorkers. We need to change that.
Now, can you talk about the social implications of defunding the reentry program?
I think we're in a moment in our sort of collective history where we have to ask ourselves the question: what sacrifices and what commitments do we make to ensure equity? And I think that's particularly important for us. We can play this from the angle of, what does it cost to keep someone incarcerated? Well, that's about $500,000 per year, right? We could do that. We could play that game. Financially, it doesn't make sense. We want folks to have better outcomes. We can play it from the perspective of, does it make sense that a family on the outside of this, what is it a family needs to ensure their success? Well, to ensure that someone doesn't experience recidivism, the typical issue is related to poverty, right? What's poverty related to? The job access, it's about wages, right? And it's about opportunity that's associated with that over time. So again, I think when you think about it from that perspective, this cut has ramifications. This cut is harming the workforce. This cut is something that is not reflective, I think, of what our values are as a city that is seeking opportunity for all. Remember, this is a place where everyone should be able to find success.
Now, can you tell us more about your report, Pathways to an Inclusive Economy?
Yeah, this is the city's commitment. I was part of the task force that was convened to think about how it is that we can create a truly inclusive economy. And that was a dynamic and interesting engagement of workforce providers, funders, employers, city government, labor, all around the table to sort of sort out how this city has to change. And there were about 5 different really pointed recommendations associated with that particular report that we really need to zone in on. One, the mayor has championed for a great deal of time, which is related to expanding apprenticeships. Apprenticeships are a great opportunity that can lead to access to careers and career development over time. Metrics, funding, all part of this. Employer front door, all part of this picture as well. But again, the idea is about ensuring, and this came from the mayor's Executive Order 22, it's all about ensuring that if you're a young adult, you've got a true career pathway. If you're someone with vulnerabilities, you have the opportunity to be successful. If you're someone who needs a second act career and you need to reskill or upskill, we're gonna make sure that happens. And we're gonna ensure diversity and equity over time. I'm proud to be part of that commitment, but that requires an investment. And this city needs to invest over time so that we meet immediate needs because the city is increasingly unaffordable at the same time as we set our course for the future jobs in this city. And there are lots, and there's lots of opportunities here. It's our training providers, it's the New York City Employment Training Coalition that's really relied on by the city to ensure those job opportunities and that training is available. We want to make sure employers are ready for us so that New York talent can thrive.
Now, we have about a minute left. And this may be a loaded question, but what could be done when we hear stories like this and we want to make a difference and we don't want to see these cuts happen? What could be done to ensure that people get the services they need?
Great question. I'm part of an advocacy organization that focuses on budget, legislation, and compliance issues. What does that mean? We need to make sure the money is available to execute on our priorities. We need to make sure that the laws are in place that expand access. And we need to make sure that any contract that the city has is fulfilled, whether that's supporting human services workers with the cost of living adjustment, or whether it's standing together in front of City Hall or other places to say, we need to invest in the workforce now, and we need to continue that commitment over time. That's the work that it takes. So you have to make sure you know your council members, you know your representatives, and we as a city are relentless about holding folks accountable for the success of everyone, because that's a new New York.
Well, Greg, thank you so much for joining us and having this conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you.
For more information about the New York City Employment and Training Coalition, please go to their website at www.nycetc.org or follow them on social media at nycetc_org. We have to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more Open right after this.
COVID-19 has changed how we spend weekends with the girls. Now it's time to take the first step that lets us get back to brunching instead of late-night munching. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts. As COVID-19 vaccines become available, you may have questions.
Should I get it?
Is it safe? Should I wait?
It's okay to have questions. Now get the facts at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Can you see anything different as a pill?
No.
You don't know?
Fentanyl is being mixed into everything now. There's only one thing that will save somebody's life. That is naloxone nasal spray.
Fentanyl, it's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
Why would drug dealers put a lethal dose of fentanyl in drugs if they know it's so harmful?
Really just all about the money.
I just didn't realize that one pill could change your whole life.
More kids should know.
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Dear moms and dads, what you have achieved here today is going to help us and our futures. It is why we are coming up on stage to collect your diplomas.
You know it's true.
Mom, we love you always.
Everything I do.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
Welcome back. Woodlawn Senior Living in the Bronx is a development project completed by the RiseBoro Community Partnership addressing the affordable housing crisis in New York City. The project, financed by HPD's Senior Affordable Rental Apartments program, offers 79 affordable homes for seniors. Joining me to discuss this effort is the CEO of RiseBoro Community Partnership, Scott Short. Scott, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, can you talk about the Woodlawn Senior Living Center or like establishment at 69 East 233rd Street in the Bronx?
Sure. Yeah, this is a really exciting project for RiseBoro. RiseBoro is a 50-year-old nonprofit based in Brooklyn, and this represents our first affordable housing project in the Bronx. So we're really excited to be able to bring 79 affordable homes to seniors in the community and in the city at large.
Now, it's so nice to hear when like places from other boroughs come to the Bronx. People often think of the Bronx as the forgotten borough. So can you just talk about like why it was so important to provide this type of work here to seniors in this borough?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think you touched on it a bit in the introduction. We are in the midst of a housing crisis, and it's an affordability crisis that is affecting everyone in the city, but seniors oftentimes feel it hardest because they are oftentimes on fixed incomes. And so it's really important that we are building new affordable housing in every neighborhood, and that's really core to RiseBoro's mission. We're not going to solve the housing crisis if we're just building in certain neighborhoods around the city. We really need to build in every neighborhood, and that's why we were really thrilled to be able to bring this to Woodlawn.
Now, can you talk a little bit more about the challenges that seniors face specifically? Because I think when we talk about just challenges in New York City, we often just think about like working class, like, you know, certain age group, but we don't really think about seniors. So can you talk about some of the challenges they face?
Sure. Yeah. So I think from an affordability standpoint, the fixed income nature of a lot of seniors' existence is really kind of what presents the biggest challenge. So what we've been able to do at Woodlawn is to get project-based Section 8 vouchers for every single unit. So that means the seniors will move in, they will pay 30% of their income. If they're on a fixed income of $100 a month, their rent will be $30 a month. And that Section 8 voucher means the federal government will be picking up the difference between what the senior can afford and what it costs to operate the building. So that's really key from an affordability standpoint. I think other attributes that we try to build into all of our projects are supportive services. Seniors, especially as they age in place, and our buildings are really designed so that a senior may move in when they're a relatively young senior, 65, for example. We want them to live the rest of their life there. So in order to do that, we need to be able to provide the support with benefits, access, with assistance with medical providers and doctors, with monitoring health, with bringing resources into the building that can help keep seniors healthy. And so we have a whole program of supportive services that is designed to enable people to age in place.
Now, I want to talk about just the ribbon cutting, just in general. That was something that happened recently. How was that? And, you know, how did it go? And how did it feel to see that finally, you know, cut that ribbon and kind of open this to people?
Yeah, it was a really special day. We had a number of the local elected officials came to celebrate with us. The site was actually initially identified by Pastor Granville Sr., who is a community leader who has been trying to bring affordable senior housing to his neighborhood of Woodlawn for years. He was able to bring these two sites together, brought us in to help develop it. So it was really great to see his dream come to fruition as well. And most importantly, see the beautiful housing that is now creating an affordable place for all the senior residents.
Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the services. I can imagine just looking for housing in general can just be like overwhelming. It could be a lot of stress. What were some things that you guys did to make sure that this process wasn't as stressful or daunting for many of the seniors?
Yeah, so like all affordable housing that's financed by New York City, the apartments are allocated through a lottery process through the city system known as Housing Connect. So the city, I want to say about 5 years ago, transitioned to this all online Housing Connect system. It used to be that you could submit paper applications, but now everything goes through this online system. So that can be a little challenging for some seniors who are not as digitally savvy. So we provided many opportunities in the community for seniors to be able to come, bring their information. We would sign them up on Housing Connect, make sure that they click the box for the Woodlawn Senior Living community as something they were interested in. And that way made sure that digital access was not a limiting factor for any senior.
And can you talk a little bit more just about the nature of the lottery? Like, how does that work?
Sure. So typically about 4 months before an affordable housing building is ready for occupancy, you will run the lottery. So people are able to sign up on Housing Connect anytime before that point. And then the city will actually run the lottery. They will give us the list. And then we just go down the list, 1, 2, 3, right in order. Call seniors. There are income requirements for all of these apartments, so they have to meet the income requirements. And assuming they do, we make an offer of lease, and if they're interested, they'll sign it and move in as soon as the building's ready.
Now, can you talk about some of the amenities the building provides?
Sure. So what's really important for RiseBoro, we're committed to solving the housing crisis, but we never want to build a building just for housing's sake. We always take it as an opportunity to really create some broader community benefit, some broader community impact. And one of the ways that we have done this consistently over the last decade or so is by really prioritizing energy efficiency in all of our building designs. So this is a passive house building, which is the gold standard when it comes to energy efficiency. It will be using up to 80% less energy to heat and cool it. It's a completely electric building. So that contributes both to our climate goals. It also contributes to a healthier living environment for the seniors. So that's something that's really important to RiseBoro and a cornerstone of our development practice. Other amenities, we've got a parking lot. We have a gym where we do a lot of health-focused programming. We have a community room where we do birthday parties and social events on a monthly basis. And we have a really beautiful outdoor patio where the seniors can sit in good weather and socialize and just get some fresh air.
So these are things that I all love to hear. Like when you think about where you want to live and spend the rest of your life, it's so nice that like these things are all in the same area, so you don't have to travel too far. Because I think for a lot of Bronxites, we feel like we have to go to different boroughs to kind of see or experience a lot of these things that other places have. So I think that's amazing. Could you just talk about how that just contributes towards improving the quality of life for these seniors?
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that we find in the aging sector for seniors as they grow older is the loss of those social connections. And really, there are studies that have shown that those social connections translate directly to physical health outcomes. So if you can keep seniors socially engaged, if you can build a real community where people feel like they have those social bonds and they're connected to each other, that actually prolongs life and keeps people healthier. So that's really the goal around all these common spaces that we build and the supportive service program that we create, is to make sure that we have strong community bonds strong social connections to keep the seniors healthier and living longer.
And I've done some packages in the past where there was work to help, just support seniors. A lot of them live alone, or like they may not have grandchildren or people who come by and visit. So the sense of community seems especially important in this stage of life. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, and not only do many seniors live alone without nearby family members, many of our seniors are coming from all over the Bronx or even all over New York City. So they may be coming to an entirely new neighborhood where they don't have those relationships in place. They don't know, the local shopping areas. Right. And at that age, it's harder to adjust to change. So that's one of the primary roles that our social workers and our service coordinators play, is helping seniors acclimate to that new community, helping them build those connections, and then not only in the broader community, but within our building, we want to build a very tight-knit community of people who are looking out for each other.
Now, are there any plans in the near future to develop more senior housing in the Bronx?
Yeah, so we're always looking. We don't have a project in construction right now, but we are very active in all 5 boroughs, finding new opportunities to help create the housing that we're going to need to get the city out of this affordability crisis.
And could you quickly just tell us about your organization as a whole and the work that you do?
Sure. Yeah. So RiseBoro is a 50-year-old nonprofit. As I mentioned, 2023 is actually our 50th anniversary. So our mission is to unleash the potential of communities to thrive no matter the odds. So we do that through a holistic set of services focused on seniors, focused on affordable housing, on homelessness prevention, youth and education services, health services. And we provide a broad array of programs that really attempt to empower people to lift themselves out of poverty and make the city a more livable place for all people.
Well, Scott, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. My pleasure.
To keep up with the work of RiseBoro, please go to their website at www.riseboro.org or follow them on social media at RiseBoro NYC. We've come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recable cast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum Channel 67 and Verizon Fios Channel 33, or watch anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. You can catch a brand new episode of Open with Darren Jaime on Wednesday and with Rena Valentine on Friday. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and your safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.